what's happening there. You guys like this picture, by the way? Anybody know the artist who might have taken that photo? That was Patrick. Yeah. All right. The phaser sets the number of degrees of the secondary engine past primary. So now we got the prop blades out of sync, which is something you may want. It may be quieter that way. So let's see. Uses a pulse generator. Uses a pulse. Uses a pulse generator. Pulse generator. Use a pulse generator. Keyed to the same blade on each engine. So, all right, so what is a pulse generator? I don't really know what they're talking about with their pulse generators, but there's easy ways to do this. And sometimes you'll even see like a little sticker, reflective sticker on a blade on the, well, that would have to be the face. And you want to keep it low so the pilot wouldn't necessarily see it, but you can have an optical sensor that'll sense that every time it comes around. It's how you do dynamic balance on a propeller. Do the same thing. You set up a little optic eye, put a little piece of tape on there so it knows the position of the blade and where everything has to go. So you can do that. Airplanes have, you know, obviously a lot of things that we're never even going to get into. I worked on one aircraft that had thrust generators on it, or thrust indicators. So it was just a piston engine with thrust indicators. So it was basically pitot tubes that came out of the bottom of the cowlings, the nacelles. And what it did is it compared the engines, and if one of them didn't have thrust off the prop, then that was a bad engine. So it'd indicate which engine was good, which engine was bad. Obviously, I don't think that would work for this because it'd have to sense the pulse going through, which wouldn't work. But it made me think of that, so I thought I'd throw it out there. Let me see. Pulse generator will give RPM as well as position. So the pulse generator will give RPM information, RPM, as well as position or phase. So obviously if the pulses are at the same time, the props are in sync, but if it's different, then they're out of sync. The what?
Pretty big sync if they both fit there.
All right, control unit. I couldn't hear him, so I don't know.
Move on.
What do you say?
He's cracking jokes.
They said it's a pretty big sync if they both fit there.
It's a big sync.
Yeah.
So I kept wanting, every time I do that, I think I should write SINK to see if I'm. The control unit will adjust the governor as needed to keep prop in sync and in phase. And there is, I'll show you a picture, I'll come back to that. Oh, I thought I had a picture of the cockpit switch. I do not. So never mind. Pretend like I didn't do that. There's a cockpit switch that allows the pilot to vary the phase angle to reduce cabin noise and vibration. So a cockpit control. Allows pilot to vary Phase angle, vary the phase angle. Yeah. Phase angle to reduce cabin noise. Shoot, nowadays they just buy Bose headsets and throw all this stuff out. Increase gross weight, or increased, yeah, useful load, I mean. And that is all I have to say about synchrophasing. That's all I have to say about synchrophasing. Put your hand down.
Damn it. He was stretching.
I done told you everything I already knew.
Yeah.
Any question you ask after this point just makes me look stupid.
Oh, is that my game?
Is the control like a servo on the cable there that's adjusting the speeders?
I've never even seen one of these things.
Okay. But they've got to. They're not purely electronic, are they? The controls are electronic, but that's got to.
All I can do is tell you how I envision it working with little information I have. And even then I'm like, so if I go back to this and then I input into, and this is me making up stuff, all right? So if I go to this and I want to add the phaser to the control box, so if I had to make up something, then I would put one of those little optical sensors, that sees the prop blade. I would add that to the control box, which would have to have some sort of electronic stuff in there. It couldn't be all just mechanical. Then from that point, you would take the slave and you would slow it back. Like if you were totally in phase and you wanted to pull back the phase, you would slow it up just a little bit and then bring it back in phase and bring it back up to it. And then you'd be locked in phase, or you'd have your phase and your RPM set. So it just have to have the...
Something like I'm thinking it's got to translate into a combination of electronics and mechanical.
Yeah.
Like an autopilot or something with how it's making that adjustment on the slate.
The only adjustments you have is the governor. There are no other adjustments. There's nothing on an engine that can be changed. So it's got to happen to the governor. So you either got to speed up one and then lock it in phase, or slow it down and lock it in phase. And so, like I said, you just add the control box. It just knows where it is, and then you're done. But yeah, it'd have to be electronic, brain operation in there with the vacuum hose, just to make it complicated. What is a vacuum hose? A vacuum hose doesn't do anything, but just then you put a sticker on it that says warning, high voltage, and then nobody will touch it. All right, we got that. Oh, I got this thing here. Auto feather. Auto feather. Yeah, anymore, it used to be fun because everything was mechanical. You could figure everything out, Now you look at you have the autopilot in yours?
Century 2.
Yeah, I don't know about it. And, it's just mine. It's just a box about that big, and and it just takes everything and inputs it in and just runs 3 servos. You're like, that's So auto feather. Auto feather. When would you use auto feather?
When you want to take a nap.
You got it. All right, so auto feather, and I don't think I have any pictures here, but it is something that will automatically feather your engine. Should you have an engine failure? It's really bad if you do that when you don't have an engine failure, because now you do have one. But when would you want to use auto feather?
When you're not paying attention to it.
Yeah, when you're not paying, like takeoff and landing. So I'd want this is for takeoff and landing. It says typically used for takeoff and landing only. Well, typically and only are kind of, that won't work. So I'd say typically used for takeoff and landing. So what it is designed for, and I told you about, me in this citation simulator, how easy it was for me even knowing what was coming to put away the wrong engine. And there's been many times that's happened with pilots you have a loss of thrust and grab the wrong engine and pull it back. Now you got nothing. So if you have an auto feather device on takeoff, critical times of flight, you lose power in one engine, it will automatically feather. And so the pilot's attention is focused somewhere else. Instead of putting that away, it's just going to be put away all by itself, which is a much safer thing to do. You heard the joke about the cockpit of the future? Has a pilot and a German Shepherd. The pilot's there to feed the German Shepherd, and the German Shepherd's there to bite the pilot if he touches anything.
Damn it. It drives itself.
Auto land features, so it's not surprising.
I know. So yeah, the Denali I think that's been out for a while.
I know the Malibu or the Meridian had the Halo system, which was one of the first, and then the Denali's the most recent.
So like your airplane with the 750, you press and hold the direct, right, for 3 seconds. It automatically sends the GPS to the nearest airport, hits your autopilot to nav, right?
Yes.
And it's going to automatically that's 2 steps, and it's automatically going to take your airplane to the nearest airport.
And it'll give you a ring of what your best flight is, and that's compensated for wind speed and direction, and everything's all calculated in there instantly for you.
How close to the runway will your autopilot get you? Are you doing approach?
I haven't tried it.
Okay.
But no, I think that with the 3-axis autopilot, I think it'll take you down to like 500 feet or something. It's pretty accurate.
Yeah, I think by that FARS mine you're supposed to disconnect at 200. So I tried mine the other day on an approach. So do that, hit a visual approach, and it'll line up the runway and hit approach on the autopilot. It'll find it, hit the approach, and you have to manage the power. It'll go too fast, but it'll still do it. It just flies a perfect. And I was right. Just a few 200 feet right off the deck, and I finally just disconnected it. I'm like, okay, I better take over from here. But it would have safely crashed it onto the runway because somebody's got to pull back on it at the last minute. So yeah, technology is there. B, let's see, when armed. When armed, system is activated with power levers above about 50%. What kind of engine do you think this is? Turbine engine. Probably talking King Air type. System will feather prop if torque pressure switch senses a drop below a set limit. Thankfully, there is a time delay. DLAY. Time delay to prevent feather if, this kind of worries me, if there is a momentary loss of power. One or 2 seconds. That's a long damn time to have a loss of power. What? Oh, never mind. It's fine. It just does that all the time. And thankfully, if one engine,
How do you have the momentary 1 to 2 second loss of power? What causes that?
an air bubble in the line, a bad magneto. If one engine auto feathers, system, yeah, in reality that'd be a good answer. Mismanagement of fuel. If one engine auto feathers, system will not auto feather remaining engine. I would assume that's with a twin engine. Maybe if you have 4 engine, it may at that point. And that is all I have to say about that. I'm looking at Mike. Am I good?
Good.
All right. He is not good. All right. Let's talk about another different system. Propeller icing. Not the good kind of icing that you put on a cake, because that's a different kind of thing. I wouldn't mind some. All right, prop ice. See, we have a problem with ice accumulation on aircraft is a huge, huge problem. That sounded weird how I said it. You don't want that. I know I'm terrified of ice. That's my problem, because maybe I just don't understand it to the extent I do, or I do understand it to the extent I do, which is, and I should be scared of it. I know when I flew back to Boston in the middle of winter, and I'm flying over a snowstorm, because you can look down between breaks of the clouds and go, wow, it is really snowing below me. It is really, really cold. I mean, I was terrified of ice, but of course I was not in IFR conditions. I'm in VFR, and it's clear, and it's really not likely to get clear air icing on the aircraft. But in order to fly and do icing conditions, you have to have an aircraft certified for known icing conditions, which is going to entail a lot of different things. We're just going to look at the prop at the moment. And so we, of course, would not want ice to accumulate on the propeller, because that would be a loss of thrust from the airfoil. If we did get ice buildup on the prop and it slings it off, we're going to have an imbalance if it doesn't sling it off evenly, which would cause it to shake. And, well, I guess once it starts shaking real bad, it'll clear ice off of everything. So I don't know, maybe just think this through a little bit better. But, all right, so accumulation. Accumulation of ice causes loss of airfoil shape. If ice causes loss of airfoil shape and causes imbalance, causes loss and imbalance. Both of which are not ideal. First of all, I have to understand icing does not usually occur near the outer sections of the blade.
Excuse me. Thank you.
Near the outer sections of the blades. Outboard just doesn't do it.
Is that because it's spinning faster than the board?
Yep. Well, it's all the same RPM. Yes. Yes, it's because of the centrifugal forces are much higher outboard. So the blades due to centrifugal forces. If the centrifugal forces are enough to fling black paint off of it, it sure is gonna fling off ice. So Yeah, fling ice. So these de-ice systems are usually only about yay much of the inboard. First third. All right. In the world of prop, de-ice, anti-ice, there are two types of systems. And this is airplane wide, not just props. One, we've got what we call anti-ice. And two, we have de-ice. Maniac. Anti-ice prevents the accumulation of ice. And de-ice removes ice once built up. This used to seem like a very cut and dry thing to me. You could just look at a system and go, oh. Like, for example, leading edges on aircraft. There's heated leading edges. There's the TKS system. It's weeps. It's an incredible system. It weeps like antifreeze out and goes over the wing and keeps ice from building up and melts ice. And there's the pneumatic type where they have rubber boots, and it just looks like a rubber protection boot, but they inflate. And they inflate in sections, and they have these little bumps that'll come out about that far. Just, boom, they inflate and come out. And so we used to say, well, I was taught, okay, that's like the boots are an anti-ice system, because I was taught, oh, you always let the ice build up, and then you activate the boot, and then it pops the ice off. So that would be, de-ice. You de-ice, right? But now, when all the FAA test questions as a pilot centered around that, it says, when should you activate these boots? Oh, immediately upon suspected entering an icing condition. So if you immediately turn it on when you're in a suspected icing condition, that would make it a anti-ice. So at that point I said, I give up. I'm not going to label either one anything, really, at that point. Or, I'm not going to hold anybody's feet to the fire on that one. So I guess the takeaway from that is how the system works is exactly what it says in the pilot's operating handbook for that aircraft. So if that aircraft says, let ice accumulate, then turn it on, it would be a... And if it says, turn it on before you encounter icing conditions, that's the only absolute that I can give you. But that's kind of a new theory I'm at. So my notes kind of go back old school. So I have the anti, but I'm not going to bust your chops on this. You just tell me how the system works, and if you get the name wrong, it's like, well, it's just doesn't matter. All right. So we have anti-ice fluid. So this is going to be a fluid system that uses either one of two things, isopropyl alcohol I suppose scotch would work in a pinch, beer, I don't know. Downside is flammability, or upside, depending on when you need it. Or a phosphate compound. And the system that it's actually TKS, right?
Yes.
Yeah, TKS. Did you fill those?
As a mechanic, when I was working in the maintenance shop, yes.
Line
As a
service.
line guy, no.
Okay.
Because it's so bad for you. The company was like, let the mechanic deal with it.
Really?
It crystallizes your kidneys, I think.
Oh, absolutely. Off
Sorry.
topic. Yeah, you know, I got an hour drive home, so I've been listening to Dateline, and that's how some husband or wife killed the partner. Slow, just put a little bit of. Shouldn't tell you guys this because you guys are sketchy people.
Is it on record?
Never mind. I don't want you touching my. You'll kill me.
Yeah.
You guys are out of this class anyway. So yeah, but antifreeze, a little bit of antifreeze, and her tea or coffee or something, and you mix it with sugar or something. I don't know. It was some drink they mix and mix it with something that hid the taste, and yeah, crystallizes the kidneys, and there's no cure.
Interesting, the de-ice fluid that you in the trucks or a barrel, that's glycol.
Yeah,
Which
ethylene
is-
glycol. That's what I was talking about, which is
Which
very
is
cool.
sweet to the taste, but
Yes.
it's not good for you.
Yeah. All right. So this, let me see. It removes ice once built up. So it removes ice once built up. However, I want to say that with the TKS systems, you don't wait till you turn it on when you encounter an icing condition, sparingly, because it does have both of these systems that use fluid. You run out, and you don't want to run out. Yeah, it's got to be all sticky and stuff. Starting to get the wildlife in here now. Okay. So I'm not going to. Anti-ice must be used before the formation of ice. So, according to the textbook, so anti-ice must be used before formation of ice, because it really doesn't melt the ice. But I think some of this stuff might melt a little bit. All right, so how does this system work here? Well, it's actually very simple.
So the TKS will remove ice once it's built up. So it's sort of
I know, that's why I don't want to write that, because the TKS does. Things change. All right, so how does it work? We have a tank with a limited quantity of whatever we're going to put in it. We're going to put the right stuff in with, of course, a filter. How do I know that's a filter? Because it says filter. So I know, I feel so stupid just reading it. It's like I'm reading it. There's a tank, there's a filter, there's a switch, a rheostat, a pump, slinger, feed, pipe, overshoe. That's called overshoe. Some books call it a feed shoe, which I think I like feed shoe better. So what it does, the switch or rheostat is going to be pilot controlled that goes to the pump that allows you to turn the pump fast or slow. So if you're just approaching conditions that are a little icy, but not really that much, there really is a bug in front of me, I'm not going crazy, then you would go low because you have a limited quantity. So, but then you encounter heavy icing conditions, you're going to switch it to high, and the pump is going to run higher and sling out more fluid. So it's just going to go from the pump to, and this is kind of the cool part. Let me see if I got a different picture. There we go. Yes, I did enlarge it. The pump is going to inject it into this cup. Of course, it's like a Frisbee with a lip on the back. And because it's three-dimensional. And that, of course, this slinger ring is spinning around and is part of the prop, but the supply is not spinning because it's part of the airframe, because something spins and something doesn't. So you've got that cup, and the nozzle just sprays it down that cup. Well, this cup, because of centrifugal motion, will hold all the fluid in it while it's spinning, and it'll spin around until it finds a hole that goes to the second little pipe that'll come down and go to the feed shoe, or overshoe as they call it. And the feed shoe looks like a boot that, no, it's not about, I'm not being a Canadian. It's a boot that, I just sound Canadian, that looks like it may be a heated boot, or if you really want to make me laugh, tell me that it's one of those boots that inflates, because I'm really going to ask you a lot of questions about how they get the pneumatic air out there and the hoses and what kind of slip rings you must have. And so it's really entertaining for me. But these boots are nothing more than just glued on with grooves cut in it. So it directs the fluid to go down the grooves and then disperse out.
On top of the boot.
On top of the boot. So it's just, the boot is just grooves. Can't groove the prop, so put rubber on it with grooves in it. That's all it is. There we go. There's that's not a very clear picture. But you can see the slinger ring is back there. So here's the feed pipe, discharge pipe with the rubber boot that has the grooves put into it. And that's all that is. What kind of prop is that?
Lots of speed.
It's quick. He is correct.
Three-bladed.
Three-bladed constant speed. Ha!
Good guess.
Hartzell compact. Which one of these Zerk fittings would you take out in order to grease it?
The one
Trailing edge.
Trailing edge. This is the leading edge right there. So this must be the trailing edge right there. That's the leading edge with the boot. That is the trailing edge. We take out that one. All right. All right. Let's see. Operation. Oh, shoot.